I'm Jennifer Keller, Programming Coordinator at the Westport Library. Today, I'm so happy to be speaking with Leigha Grushkin, debut author of Where It Begins. Hi, Leigha.
Hi, Jennifer.
So, what inspired you to write Where It Begins?
So I actually love the story of how this book and subsequent series came to be, because I feel like it was just such a kismet experience. Basically, I have always been a very passionate writer. I've been writing since I was younger. As the youngest of 3 kids, it was hand-me-down everything. So I, would write on my parents' computers, my siblings' computers, and I kept everything on a flash drive. And so I had all these stories of like worlds that I had created, not like sci-fi, but just characters and their own stories and storylines and friends and families. And I had been writing for a very long time, keeping everything on a flash drive. And when I went away to college with moving and being in different places, I actually misplaced this flash drive. And, I kept writing, I didn't let it get me down. But when I was a senior, I moved into my own apartment and I finally had all my belongings in the same place at once. And I found the flash drive from at least 4 years ago. And when I plugged it into my computer, it was like reuniting with all these old friends, basically. And one of the stories that I had, when I opened it, it was hundreds of pages of unedited, single space content. And it was this storyline of these 2 characters, Carter Baker and Jagger Hastings, who are the main characters in this story. And I just felt so overwhelmed that I was like, okay, I really need to develop this. And so I spent most of my senior year developing, editing, going through, formatting, and I used a lot of my seminar classes that I was taking, because I was an English major, writing minor at Eastern. I used a lot of those classes to develop this writing from, when I was younger, that definitely needed a lot of work. And this whole series just came to be of these characters that I had known for so long personally. And it just kind of like made it so, I had to publish it. I had to get it out into the world. Like, I wouldn't say anything inspired me specifically for this story, but just the fact that I found it after all these years, I was like, I need to get this out in the world, and I need to get this, so other people can read it and enjoy it like I did for all this time.
Oh, fabulous. So without giving away too much of the story, because we want people to read the book, would you share a brief synopsis of what happens to these characters?
Yeah, so basically they are, I guess it starts with, you meet the girl, Carter, who's one of the main characters, and you're meeting her at kind of a turning point in her life. She's just moved across the country and she's starting at a new school in the middle of the first semester. And, you find out that she's got more going on in her personal life than that meets the eye. And just with like, issues that we all deal with, she's kind of got those. And she's starting this new school and she meets this guy and everyone's like, oh, so it's a love story. And yes, it does center around that, but as the story goes on, it's more than just that. And the same goes with the other main character, Jagger. You're trying to, you're trying to figure out who these characters are. Well, they're trying to figure out who they are themselves. They're high schoolers, and high schoolers are just trying to figure out who they are. And that's kind of where the story takes off, is just, following their lives as they grow older and, what they go through. And you're not getting a single narrator. Each chapter is from a different character's perspective. So it bounces between the 2 main characters and you're getting their side of each story. But then you also get a sibling or a friend, and it kind of just diverges into, you're getting everyone's different viewpoints. And that's what I really like about how I wrote this book, is that it's not just one person or an omniscient narrator that knows all. It's, you're getting separate sides to everyone's stories. And so it kind of just follows them throughout the end of high school and into college, and where it begins, where their lives take them.
So I know that you grew up in Westport. Did the play a role in your writing of this novel?
So everyone asks me that. And when people who know me read the book, they say, oh, I see you and your siblings, or I see Westport in it. And I kind of laugh because I purposely tried not to make it. It's not about me in any way. It's not about my upbringing. It's not, none of me is in this book. And none of Westport is really in this book. I set it in Massachusetts because obviously being from Connecticut, I love the small town feeling that we have, but I didn't want it to be, I didn't want people to read into the text. So I set it in a similar style town, not really similar style town to Westport, but like Massachusetts has a similar vibe as Connecticut, and that's kind of what I wanted to go for. But it is funny, everyone does ask me that, and it's not related to my life at all. Sure, people who know me will find Easter eggs that they think I put in on purpose, but they were subconscious. But it's outside of who I am and how I was raised.
Great. So you said that this is the first of a series. How did you decide to write a whole series? And do you think that writing a series, I mean, this is just right, but do you think that writing a whole series of books is harder or easier than writing a single standalone novel?
So, you know, I was thinking about that question because we had talked a little bit earlier. I was thinking about that, and it's funny because in some aspects, I think it is hard because you have to decide how much you're going to put in each book. So obviously, like I told you, I had a majority of this series written out when I finished with this flash drive. So I know where I want these characters ending, and I know where the story goes. And I also know that a lot of that is going to change, which is where it kind of gets hard because I need to remember what is going to stay from what I originally wrote and what I'm going to have to develop. And then keeping that in mind, I'm going to have to remember, you know, is this staying in the story when I'm writing this earlier chapter? Is that going to relate to a later book? You know, and I have to really remember, I basically need I need flowcharts. I mean, I have a notebook that I keep with me when I write just to keep everything like storyboarded out, because I know these characters. These characters are they're like my family. You know, my mom calls my book my baby because it is my baby. But I know where I want these characters to go. And so that sense, it's difficult because you have to keep so many different aspects in line in order to make everything make sense. And on top of that, so with this first book, it's not that long. It's just under like 250 pages. It's not that long. A lot of people reached out to me when I first published and they said, oh my God, I need more from this book. Like you left so much out. And I was saying, well, that's kind of the purpose. You know, you want people to be invested in your characters, and you want people to want more from the book because they're going to get more eventually. Obviously, it's like watching a series, and you know, the season ends and they leave you on a cliffhanger. That's the point. They want you wanting more. And so in that sense, it gets kind of easy because I do know there's going to be more, and I do know that people are getting invested in my characters, which is what I wanted in the first place from publishing, is people to get invested in my characters and to get invested in my storyline, so they would read the books, because I love writing. I love writing these characters specifically. I feel like I know them so well, and just like I could get lost writing. I mean, it's my favorite thing to do. And so knowing that this is going to be a series and I can invest more time and give these characters the justice they deserve, that's what makes it so easy and worth it. So it's kind of like, it's very much a balancing act when it comes to writing a series.
Ah, okay. So do you know when your next book will be coming out by any chance, so we can look out for it?
My goal was to release one a year around the holidays. However, I am currently looking for an agent, so that might delay things. Obviously, with everything going on, you know, you make plans and God laughs. You can't plan anything. It's a fool's errand. So I would love to get one out within the next year. I have definitely been working very hard on getting it out. I have the manuscript sitting next to me on my desk almost at all times. And I have a very lovely friend who has been my sounding board and reads every chapter over and over again, and just has been great with getting great edits to me. But it will be a process. It's definitely not, I don't know if it's going to be out this year, but I can hope.
Well, we'll be here for you, and we'll keep our fingers crossed.
Yes.
So is there anything that you're reading these days? Obviously you're not reading your own book because you don't have to.
Yeah.
But other than your own book, are there any books or poems or anything that you're reading these days that we should be on the lookout for?
So I recently read 2 books, probably within the last 6 months. I read 2 books that have just like resonated with me, that if anyone wants a compelling book to read, I have 2 very different suggestions. So one is called The Nix by, I want to say it's by Nathan Hill. Let me just check that real quick. It's The Nix, and it's kind of, it's a little political, but not in the sense of what you would think. It bounces back. It focuses on an adult, and it's by Nathan Hill, and it bounces back from when he was a kid to now, and it's told from different perspectives, which obviously that's how I wrote my book, so I enjoy that. And it's very well written, it's compelling, it's got very well developed characters, it's got a couple different storylines that all intersect, which I think makes for a really well developed and interesting book. It's when you've got more than one thing going on. So that is, it's a good book, The Nix, N-I-X. And then the other one is a totally different style book. It's The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle, and that's by Stuart Turton. And that is sci-fi, totally just wild, interesting characters. Again, it's told by different perspectives. Obviously, that's a theme that I enjoy, but it's basically just a different character living the same day, and they're trying to figure out what's happening to this woman, Evelyn Hardcastle. Very well written, very just the plot itself. It's just so masterfully thought out. I've never read anything like it, and it's really, really well done. I think I read it on vacation, and I read it in like 3 days, and it's a pretty big book, and I read it in like 3 days. I needed to know what happened. And when I read a good book, I immediately tell my mom, her friend, and my grandma. And so I told all of them to read it and said, you have to read it. And we all like very different styles of books. And if 2 out of the 3 of us, or 2 out of the 4 of us, whatever, 2 out of the 3 of them liked it. So that means it's a thumbs up.
Oh, fabulous. I'll have to start looking for those.
Yes.
So, Leigha, it has been a pleasure to get to know you.
Thank you.
And I want to thank you on behalf of the Westport Library for sharing your time today. For those of you watching at home, Where It Begins is available now for purchase. The easiest way is by going to, there's the cover of the book. Go now to Leigha's website, ljgbooks.com, and you can even get yourself a signed copy. And for more author videos and information about the Westport Library, remember to westportlibrary.org. Thank you again, Leigha.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.